Tony Stewart shared some new details on why he decided to dissolve Stewart Haas Racing at the end of the year. And he specifically pointed to the fact that it is the direction that NASCAR is going in, and that is a direction that he wants no part of whatsoever. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at John Trent Racing. I wrote this up over at stockcarreport.com. I will have the link in the description below. And Tony Stewart appeared on Kevin Harvick's Harvick Happy Hour podcast, where he shared significant details about why he decided to dissolve Stewart Haas Racing at the end of the year. And as I said, he pointed to the direction that NASCAR is taking the sport. So just to kind of give you a brief refresher, he did a joint statement with co-owner Gene Haas back at the end of May, where he announced that he was dissolving the team at the end of this season. And he explained, or the duo explained in this joint statement, saying racing is a labor-intensive, humbling sport. It requires unwavering commitment and vast resources with a 365-day mindset to be better than everyone else. It's part of what makes success so rewarding, but the commitment needed to extract maximum performance while providing sustainability is incredibly demanding. And we've reached a point in our respective personal and business lives where it's time to pass the torch. Obviously, Haas did announce that they will be continuing with NASCAR. They have their Haas factory team that they will be running, but Tony Stewart will not be part of that operation. So Tony Stewart said this. He says, with Kevin Harvick, he says, it's a tough decision, but things in life change. Your priorities change and variables outside of your control change as well. You know, NASCAR, you and I have been around it for a long time. It is not what it used to be. It is drastically different than what it used to be. And that's okay for some people. And for some people, it's not. And I guess I'm one of those people that, and then he cut himself off and probably was going to spill something really juicy there, but he cut himself off. And then he went on and said this: I have a lot of respect for the France family and for the opportunities I've had to be a professional race car driver and to race at the highest level and to race with Dale Sr. and Rusty Wallace and Jeff Gordon and yourself and so many great race car drivers. He then kind of returned and said that the reason why he is leaving is because of how NASCAR has changed. And he says, but this is a time where things are drastically changing in the sport. You look at what's going on with 2311 and Front Row Motorsports right now with their battle with NASCAR and the direction things are going. So if you don't know what's going on there, been hiding on a rock when it comes to NASCAR news, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports have sued NASCAR over their charter agreement. Those two teams did not sign the charter agreement, and they have now taken their case to the court system where NASCAR is battling back against them. Anyway, Stewart goes on and says this: it's not a direction that I want to be a part of. This is the right time. This was never a part of a master plan, but this is, as this year has gone on, this has become very clear that this is the right time for me to get out of the sport. There's things that I see that I definitely don't like. Unfortunately, he doesn't really go into a lot of details on what those things are that he doesn't like, but he does say, I'm happy doing the stuff I'm doing now. I've always been somebody that's ran all kinds of different series, and I don't have a Hendrick Motorsports. I don't have Penske truck rentals and all the things that a lot of these guys have to back their race teams. We have to do it solely on sponsorship, and that is a ton of work. It's more competitive now, getting sponsors than it's ever been in our sport. He explained, saying, and I mean, when you and I started, there were more Fortune 500 companies that wanted to be on cars full time that couldn't because there wasn't cars to be on. And now you're fighting for one race sponsorships, two race sponsorships. You're constantly having to change wraps out, change uniforms, crew uniforms. It's just a different time in the sport. And doing all that changes obviously eats up the sponsorship because you got to pay for all of those things. And that those cost a lot, especially if you're only getting a one or two race deal out of it. And then you're not really using those anymore, right? I guess maybe you can try and sell them on the back end, things like that to fans, try and recoup costs that way. But that is a lot of it. That is a lot of expenses. And I actually think it is detrimental to the sport. Makes it hard to identify the cars on the track. You're always trying to like readjust who's in which one, especially when a lot of the sponsors are team-based. So you'll see, especially with like the Penske's, you'll see a lot of the same sponsors are on Cindric, Logano, and Blaney. And you see kind of the similar with like Hendrick and things like that. They kind of have the same sponsors with different drivers. So it can be very confusing. And they'll have similar paint schemes too. It's like, well, is that Logano or is that Blaney? Is that Cindric this week? Who knows? Until you actually get kind of like a close up and you can see what number it is. And then even then, they're kind of close because they're all twos, right? 22, 12, 2. Anyways, tangent aside, Stewart went on and explained why he doesn't like the direction NASCAR is going. He says the sport is going to be healthy. It's going to survive. It always has. It always will. But I'm happy at this point in my life to make this change. He then said this, and like I said, it wasn't that way at the beginning of the year. We had different reasons for why we had to shut down at the end of the season. But as time's gone on and watching the owners and NASCAR fight and just the chaos that's going on over there, I'm fine being done with this at the end of the year. So that is what he had to say there. If you want to watch his full video, you can right here. Again, you can find the link to this article in the description below. But I find it really interesting that he admits here at the end of this clip that his reasoning for shutting the team down has kind of changed over the year. Obviously, it looks like it had a lot to do with finances, where he was at in his life, etc. But now it really has a lot to do with like NASCAR's chaos and all of the insane things that are happening between the team owners, between NASCAR, and just all of that absolute insanity. And one can only imagine how nerve-wracking, how stressful, how chaotic that really is. And that can be demoralizing to your team. It can be distracting from your family life, etc. Lots of negatives and not really a lot of positives coming from that until eventually maybe you get to where the dust will be settled. Then you can kind of see what the positives are. But there's clearly probably a lot of suffering that's happening amidst that chaos that's happening. And obviously there's probably getting lawyers involved in everything. There's going to be a lot of words exchanged that people will probably regret, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to be damaging friendships potentially. I mean, it just it's really not probably a good thing to be involved in. And interesting that Tony Stewart says he's glad that he's getting out because he sees kind of what is happening between NASCAR and the ownerships and the teams, et cetera, on top of how competitive it is to find sponsors for the sport and to be able to fund the team. But that is what Tony Stewart had to say. Let me know what you guys make of what he had to say. Let me know in the comments below.